Hello friends, we are here today in James chapter 4. So there's a part in this chapter where it says, you ask not, it says, you have not because you ask not. Now I've heard from some people in the prosperity gospel movement say things to the effect like, oh hey, the Bible says you have not because you ask not. The reason that you don't have the fancy car that you want or the big house that you want is because you didn't ask for it. And I want to say that that is the antithesis of what this chapter is talking about. It's not talking about getting everything you want. But what this verse is saying is absolutely true. You have not because you ask not. It's saying God will give you everything you need. James here is not saying anything that his half-brother Jesus wasn't saying on the Sermon on the Mount. He was saying, look at the sparrows. Solomon in all of his splendor never looked as gorgeous as these things do, and yet God cares for them. And then he says, who, if their son asked them for a loaf of bread, would they give him a stone or a snake? And so James is saying here, if you if you want something and it is something good, then God will give it to you. I think it's interesting when I look at my son, sometimes he wants a popsicle and he wants it real bad. And the other day, last weekend, we woke up on Saturday morning, really early in the morning. It was before the sun came up, way before he usually wakes up, because he had to throw up. And the reason is because he was eating a bunch of sweets at his grandma's house. He was kind of sneaking away with them. And he just kept eating and eating and eating, and finally in the morning, it was too much for his stomach, and he threw up. And we've been telling him his whole life, you can't have more sweets, and he probably thought, we're just being mean. He just doesn't want us to have these nice things. These things, but they taste so good. He used to do this thing when he was young. Whenever he really wanted something, he would make this angry face, and he would go, I want it. I want it. Made me laugh every time, because he became a completely different person in a second. At 1 second, he was just this demanding, powerful person. He's like, I want it. And then he'd just make this noise, I want it. He just becomes this sad little person who has nothing to do but to plead for it and beg. But we do that. We think we want these things in our lives. And I have to be honest, if I was to look in my life and think, what do I really want? And I know there's the answer that we all say. We want, if we were asking if our pastor was asking us, we'd be like, look, I just want a simple life. I just want things to be good. But if we were to actually listen to our thoughts day in and day out, and really think about what we really want, I want everything in my house to be fixed. And I do want a nicer car. And I want a boat, a big sailboat. And you know what else I want? And this is ridiculous. I want a synthesizer that goes really low and boomy, so that everybody that ever heard me play a synthesizer would think, wow, Andy may not have the nicest house or the nicest car, but he's got a synthesizer that goes lower than any I know. That's what I want. But I have to think, what if I had just died and I'm in the presence of the Lord, and I look back at my life and I think, what should I have wanted? That's a better question. What should I have wanted? And then it becomes different, I should have wanted to save my friends from sin, from hell. I should have wanted should have wanted closeness with God then like I have now. I should have wanted to spend more time with my kids. I should have wanted to be a better husband. God will give us these things if we ask for them. He can make us a better husband. He can make us a better father. He can give us the ability to communicate with our friends. So when this chapter starts, we know it's not talking about the cars. We know it's not talking about the boat or the synthesizer. He says, what brings you to quarrel? What brings you to fight with people? It's because somebody else has something that you want. And he said, because of these things, we fight, we murder, we take. And these are things that we probably shouldn't have anyway. That there's this idea that if we really wanted what we were supposed to have, God would give it to us. And yet we fall in love with the things of this world. And it says here that, don't you know that to be a friend of this world, that is to want the things of this world, is to be an enemy of God. That's the last thing we want. Or toward the end of this section, it says, be wretched. Go ahead and be sad. It makes me think of what I would tell my son if he's like, hey, I want a popsicle, and he's crying and he's really wanting it. He's saying, I want it. I want it. I would say, just go ahead and be sad, because I have your best interest in mind. And I know what's going to happen if you have too many of the sweets that you want. You're going to wake up in the middle of the night and you're going to want to throw up. At the end of this chapter, it talks about, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to do something. Don't say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and buy a truck. I feel like these plans, they always start with a truck. I'm going to buy a truck, then I'm going to get a boat, and I'm going to go charter fishing. And then at the end, it always says something like, and then I'm going to be raking in all the money. Or first I'm going to buy a truck, and then I'm going to get a bulldozer, and then I'm going to make a bunch of money. This book is saying these things are evil. It doesn't sound so evil. It says, what you should do is you should say, if the Lord wills, then I will do this or I will do that. If the Lord wills, I can buy my truck. Then you kind of think, okay, I get what it's saying. If the Lord wills, I'll buy a truck. Just have a different attitude about it. But I don't really think that that's what this is saying, because when you read it to the end, it says, whoever knows what God is doing and fails to do it, to him it is sin. And then you think, well, wait a minute, what is that talking about? That almost seems like it's not talking about the same thing that we're talking about here, but it is. It changes it. It's saying, what if God came to you and said, all right, Andy, I want you to buy a synthesizer that goes boom, a really bassy low one. And I would say, all right, Lord, I like where this is going. And he says, and I want you to put it in a box, and I want you to send it to Guatemala, because there's a church there and they need it for their worship. And by the way, that synthesizer, you are never going to have it. There's a tendency for me to say, well, Lord, that's sad. I really want that thing. I think most people that would watch this, they would say, yeah, that's kind of sad. You never get what you want. And God would look right at you with all the knowing and all the love in his heart, and he would say, it's not sad. It's not sad. I know my plans for you. And it involves you doing great things. And these things that you want to do, these plans that you want to make, they're not what I have for you. And he says, so go ahead and be wretched. Go ahead and say, Lord, I want it, but I give it to you so you can go ahead and be sad, because it's God who lifts you up. It's God that's the lifter of your head. It's God that is going to do through you the desires of your heart. So anyways, that is James chapter 4. Have a great day. Bye.